Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast and YouTube program. We talk Chiefs on this show with the people in the business, the media business, who know them well. The best, I'd say. Jesse Newell, the beat writer, and Vahe Gregorian, columnist. We don't have Sam McDowell with us today. We'll get him back here next week. So, guys, we get to talk about something we have not discussed all season, and that is the Chiefs coming off a loss at the Buffalo Bills, 30-21. Great game. I thought the atmosphere was outstanding there. The Josh Allen touchdown run at the end, the 26-yard run. Listen, I know we're in an enclosed press box, but you could feel the excitement of the fan base there, and great atmosphere. I don't know if it was a great game. It was a good game. Great play by Josh Allen, but I really enjoyed the atmosphere. But I did want to start with this. So the day after reaction, we're all making our way back from Buffalo, so there's plenty of time to read about some reaction. And on social media, it seems like there was a lot of national joy taken in the Chiefs' loss. You know, they ended their 15-game winning streak. Of course, the perfect start to the season gone. And I don't know if those were fan bases from the 72 Dolphins or or maybe the Patriots team that had the last undefeated regular season, but you're just outside of Kansas City, people seem pretty happy with this outcome. What do you think, Vahe?
Well, what's the expression about enemies being friends or enemies friends being enemies? I mean, I think we're probably a little past the statute of limitations on when the Chiefs were kind of cute and cuddly and the oh, look at that after 50 years. I mean, and so much past it that I think it's easy to sense a little bit of national resentment, whether it's fan base, even envy and from other teams. We could probably write whole things about it. I think we've alluded to it a little bit before about why we might see these Chiefs as more likable than the Brady Patriots dynasty. But the fact is, the most essential part of that is everybody else being frustrated that this team just keeps going, right? So that's the thing that bothers people the most. I think there's some admiration of the Chiefs, but I think also you're right. People feel like it was nice to see them get a little comeuppance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I determine every year, what do people cheer for? They cheer for the upsets. I mean, that's human nature. You don't want the team that's up at the top to keep winning. And so I think this is just sort of natural human instinct, is to see a team that's won 15 games in a row and think, hey, maybe it could be somebody else's turn. And like Vahe was saying, whether it was Bengals fans or Bills fans or whatever fans, seeing the Chiefs lose, that's probably not something that they're too disappointed in.
And we're not used to seeing, right? I mean, not since Christmas Day a year ago. I didn't count up the number of days, but it's a bunch, right? Since the last time the Chiefs lost, and like we said, 15-game winning streak, one of the top 10, right, in NFL history.
One of the top 10. And I was doing the math yesterday before the game, or Sunday before the game. I think it would have been, if they continued, it was going to be, already was, that maybe the fourth longest this century, which is not just an incidental stat, right? It's reflective of a era in the game where the NFL's emphasis on parity through its structure has only become, more pointed, right? With salary caps and with the way the scheduling's done and the whole format. So harder to do now, which is also reflected in the relatively few, in fact, decades since even back-to-back Super Bowl champions, and obviously the unprecedented attempt the Chiefs are making at doing a third straight.
And we'll talk about how they use the feeling of the loss into their next game, which is at Carolina on Sunday, a noon kickoff on CBS, and we'll get to that. But I want to go back to Buffalo for a second in the locker room. All of us were in there after the game, and I was, players asked about a lot of the things that went wrong for the Chiefs in this game, and I was actually pretty impressed with the way they took ownership in that loss. Jesse, I know you talked to a lot of defensive players about the game, and this was, they gave up 30 points for the first time since So is it Super Bowl 57, right? The Eagles game in which they won 38-35, but had not given up 30 in a game since then, a streak of 30, I believe 30 straight games. So what were your impressions in the locker room after the game?
Yeah, I'm with you, Blair. I was pretty impressed. It was very interesting to kind of contrast those two things you were talking about, which is people literally dancing in the aisles at Highmark Stadium after Josh Allen scores that touchdown. I mean, this is like a Super Bowl type celebration because the Bills are getting over that hump against the Chiefs. I know they beat them in the regular season, but it just feels like this has been the thing that the Bills can't get past. You know what I mean? So all that joy, all that celebration, all that feeling like it's almost like a Super Bowl, a mini Super Bowl. You know, the Chiefs locker room, and guys were ready to take accountability, and guys weren't head in hands, towel over their heads. It wasn't that sort of thing. I mean, they can lose too, and that's sort of what you think about with the Chiefs is like, yeah, they had a lot of wins in a row and they've been so successful, but I think we saw a lot of it, and guys also were approachable as well on this topic. Talk to Trent McDuffie, talk to Nick Bolton, talk to Leo Chanel. For the most part, basically, most of the guys on the team that you would expect to talk to in this sort of circumstance. But I am interested. I thought, Vahe, I think it'd be good for you to talk about your column because I think it was a really good point that you made. And I've heard this not only from Andy Reid, but from guys like Nick Bolton and Trent McDuffie after the game, that a loss can help them in ways that I think really could propel them the rest of the season. I think one example, just real quickly before I turn to Vahe and hand the baton off, the very last play, that 4th and 2 that Josh Allen scores on. If you go back and look, the Chiefs kind of got Josh Allen. He admitted after the game is he was expecting man coverage. The Chiefs ran zone. There was really nobody open. This is where guys like Mahomes and Josh Allen go make plays. But if you look, the Chiefs had 4 rushers on that play, and you got Mike Dana kind of just staying steady and keeping his lane to make sure Josh Allen can't rush. And you've got Mike Pennell kind of staying steady and keeping his lane so Josh Allen can't rush. And then you see Chris Jones, who gets a single team for maybe one of the first times all game, and he just kind of goes crazy trying to make a play. And so he gets out of his lane. Obviously, Josh Allen has the scramble kind of in the spot where Chris Jones should be. And I asked Andy Reid about that. Would you rather have guys in their rush lane or going to try to make a play? And it was very interesting what he said. He just said, look, he said the effort was there, the execution was not. We hear very similar things from Nick Bolton, which is like guys are trying hard. They're trying to make plays, but there's certain moments in a game where you have to be there for your other 10 teammates. You know what I mean? And so a loss, I think, can solidify this more. And that's how it can help them, is that it forces you to self-reflect. We heard that from Andy Reid on the call on Monday as well, saying he felt like his play calling was too conservative. He felt like they need to do fewer shifts in motion so they can play faster. There's some real self-evaluation going on after this loss that probably wouldn't have happened if they'd continue winning like they were in previous weeks. So I'll turn over to Vahe, but I know that was your main point after the game in the column, and I'm actually very much in agreement with it, that I think this loss could shake things up and make them self-evaluate in a way that maybe some of these wins wasn't allowing them to do.
That's definitely how I saw it, and I'm glad you had the same perspective. The thing that really struck me about it is, what seems to me the essence of the dynamic is that you can keep talking all you want about, boy, we got to clean that up. We got all the little things, boy, we can still get better. But when you keep winning, it's a little hollow, right? It's like, well, we worked out this time. We find a way. That's who we are. It'll just work out. We should, adjust and tweak. We'll keep trying hard, but not really like an audit, right? Where you're saying, whoa, this is why we have to play with more urgency or more level of detail, better execution. And a thought that came to me while I was writing, it's not novel, but it kind of got to the heart of it, I thought, was just the thinking that, without consequences to poor play, it's sort of hard to get everybody's attention. Well, now you got a consequence, and I think it will get everybody's attention. I'll be really surprised if they don't play substantially better from the get-go these next couple games, right? They've been a little not flat, but they haven't come out gangbusters much for a while. The only other thing, just to add to that real quick, is I don't think by any means the winning streak had become one of those hanging over them things. But I think we were within a couple games of that, especially if they beat Buffalo. I mean, they've got a couple big challenges ahead, but there is a sort of point where you question whether the benefit of continuing to win is really worth the added pressure of it. And there's no way to know, right? Some teams could bring out the best, but I think the combination of all these things should make them more on point right away. And I'll be surprised if they don't just have that intensity in these next couple of games, particularly.
I thought it was interesting what Patrick Mahomes said after the game too, where he said he felt like they needed more urgency early. And I think that also sort of is the opposite of what he said before, which is this playing complementary football. You know what I mean? Like you can feel like complementary football is going to come in. Hey, it's okay to punt. We'll get it back to the defense until a team scores 30 on the Chiefs, which hasn't happened. And then all of a sudden you look at your offense going, well, why did we punt earlier? You know what? Why didn't we try harder to score? Even Andy Reid saying, why didn't I call more aggressive play calls early? And so again, there was just this sense of the Chiefs sort of like, it's all going to work out. It has been working out. And the complementary football thing has served them well in these games. But like, until it doesn't, until you have to really look in the mirror and say, wait a minute, this offense isn't working. Like what's going on? Why is this not successful in the game? Why are they not putting up points? Why are they not hitting deep shots? Why is Patrick Mahomes not in the MVP race for the first time, basically in his career at this point in the season? So again, maybe some hard questions, some hard answers, but it does kind of speak to a fact that like, instead of just believing it, it's good to believe things are going to go right for you, but now it kind of forced you to say, hey, things didn't go right. Let's go and try to fix some things.
You both hit on a good point that I wanted to bring up, and maybe while I'm filibustering here, Jesse, you can look this up. I'd love to know Patrick Mahomes' touchdown to interception to touchdown ratio in the first quarter of games this year versus the fourth quarter of games.
Sam looked it up during the game real quick, Blair, and at the time when he had it looked up, it was either 0 touchdowns and 5 interceptions for Mahomes or 0 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in the first quarter. So it's a pretty tough.
That's stunning, right? The beginning of the Patrick Mahomes career was just, the quick strike. He'd stake the Chiefs to a 14-0 lead before the opponent even knew what had hit him, and now this was so evident on Sunday in Buffalo, second play of the game. He gets hit, throws the interception. Bills take it, score on the possession, and they miss the extra point, but it's 6-0. And I just felt like the Chiefs played uphill from that point on. Which means the entire game. They did take the lead, right? The Chiefs took a 14-13 lead at the toward the end of the first half, but the Bills came back and got a field goal and got the lead at halftime, and the Chiefs never had the ball with the lead. It felt like the Chiefs were playing catch up the entire game.
To a point you're making, Blair. I'll go quick, Jesse. Just Sam got into this really deftly with his column, but the fact that the Bills had the opportunity to put the ball in the hands of the playmaker, who is every bit to them what Patrick Mahomes is to the Chiefs, by not flinching, by going for it, by not trying to kick the field goal, they decided, we're going to leave this on our shoulders. They're in that position in a lot of ways because of what happened early. I mean, it just sort of set the tone. Maybe that, the timetable, the advantage might have been flipped to a point where Patrick Mahomes got the ball. Patrick Mahomes has the ball in that situation, which is what we've basically seen happen so many times, or the defense has come through, and the Chiefs got neither this time.
Well, the closest we saw to that game was the Chiefs were down 9. He marched them straight down the field, and they scored a touchdown to get down 2. And I knew at that moment, I thought, if the Chiefs get a stop, the Chiefs are winning this game, because that's going back to like my prediction, where it was like going to the game, you just think this is, whether he has an ankle injury or not, whether he's played well this year or not, like this is the moment that brings out the best in Patrick Mahomes. And it sure seemed like that drive. It's like, oh, here it's on again. He's turned the key on. It's the engine is revving, that sort of thing. The only thing I was going to add to Blair is, people need to check out Sam's 5 things. They're so great right after the game, instant analysis. But he had the Mahomes stats in there, which was a 62.9 passer rating in the first quarter, no first quarter touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. So that's definitely something when you're talking about getting the offense going quicker and having a little better sense of urgency. That's something they've got to get fixed.
Right. That's great. I'm glad you reminded me of that, Jesse. And and the other thing to keep in mind, Sean McDermott, the Bills coach, said as much after the game that the Josh Allen touchdown run was on 4th and 2. He didn't want to kick a field goal. That's easily a makeable field goal for Tyler Bass, but Sean McDermott said, "Yeah, we do that and go up, go up 5, and you give Mahomes the ball with 2 minutes to go, and whatever it was, 2 or 3 of his timeouts. That's You don't want that. Not if you're the Bills. It was a gutsy call by McDermott and the right one.
And it was the right one, even if it failed, right? But it struck me, and Jesse, you probably can crunch these numbers in your head in a way that I can't, but there's a parallel universe somewhere where Buffalo just decided they're going to kick the field goal. And of course, Mahomes takes the Chiefs down the field and they win. That would, and it's interesting that McDermott stayed true to that understanding of the dynamics of playing the Chiefs, right? That's the hinge here, that if we've seen other coaches not quite think that way, and it costs them.
Bold.
You got to be bold.
Todd Bowles did not go for 2. I mean, we were all like, the Chiefs want you to kick the extra point here. You know what I mean? Like, they want you to extend this game and give Mahomes a chance to win in overtime. I think this is all shaped by the past, though. Why? And this is what makes the Bills dangerous now, is because when you have 13 seconds game, you are going to get Josh Allen on the field. When you lose in overtime to the Chiefs and don't get the ball back, when you have a field goal at the end of the game to tie it up and go to overtime in the playoffs, and it goes wide, I mean, you're done messing around with all these other things that could go right for you, and you're saying, I know the thing that goes right for me. It's even when I put out there a bad play call with Josh Allen on 4th and 2, and we're expecting man coverage, and we're going to throw this guy in the flat, and oh shoot, the Chiefs have this covered perfectly. This guy's going to tuck his head down and run and still get you 26 yards and a touchdown and win the game for you, and get much deserved MVP chance from the guys in the stands that are cheering for him. So this is all shaped by previous years. And again, it's sort of in the moment, what you think of it is, you almost, as a coach, I've talked with Sam about this, like, you need to think, what does Andy Reid want you to do, and do the opposite. Like, Andy Reid wanted Todd Bowles to kick the extra point, he did, and the Chiefs were relieved. On that 4th and 2, I guarantee you Andy Reid was like, please kick this field goal, because you're just forcing the Chiefs to be aggressive, drive down the field, score a touchdown with no time left, and win the game. And you're putting in Patrick Mahomes' hands, which, as we know, in that 4th quarter, he was looking great up to that point. So, yeah, I think if I had a chart for the 4th downs for opposing coaches for the Chiefs, I would say, think what Andy Reid wants you to do and do the opposite. That's what Sean McDermott did. And again, he was rewarded for that. But I think that was all shaped by these previous experiences, and having it where his guy couldn't win the game, the Chiefs guy did. And that didn't happen this past game. And yeah, the coach deserves credit for it.
Somebody's going to make that chart and start circulating it around the NFL, because the Chiefs are the scourge.
We covered the Josh Allen touchdown run, which of course will be on his highlight reel forever, right? When he goes into the Hall of Fame, that's one of the clips they'll play of Josh Allen. We mentioned the early interception by Mahomes. Those were 2 of the 3 I thought really stand out, memorable plays in this game that shifted the balance of the game. And the other one for me was the pass to Xavier Worthy that could have been a touchdown, should have been at least a completion, and was neither. What is going on with the Patrick Mahomes to Xavier Worthy deep ball, the big play, the home run shot that has worked once, right? Vahe, you saw it out in LA when the Chiefs played the Chargers, but that's 3 times since then that the Chiefs, that Xavier Worthy's gotten behind the defense or found himself open, and the connection was not made. Maybe they just have to take the boundary out of the equation, right? Because it's all been on the boundary each time. But eternally frustrating for Chiefs fans to see plays like that and not have the Chiefs cash in.
What's interesting is these are so close. I mean, they are really close to happening. And I tend to think that little, just sliver that's off, it's gonna catch. They're gonna get it. They're gonna have 1 or 2 of these come through here anytime soon. I'd be interested to know if you guys agree with this. I felt like the first one that we talked about was really all on Xavier Worthy when he was out of bounds a couple of weeks ago. I was just sloppy footwork, didn't have a sense of where he was. The second one was all on Patrick. This one was, to me, almost a perfect combination of being on both of them. Patrick immediately brought it up, and he's right. He let him so close to the sideline when he didn't have to. I think, Jesse, I think you broke it down. I mean, I think he could have gotten rid of the ball sooner. Had he done that, he wouldn't have let him into the boundary. And then I think Xavier Worthy is so concerned with getting the feet down now, he started tapping like a couple steps before he had to. He was like, it was almost like he was jumping the gun on when to get his footwork right. So it was sort of, to me, it was on both, and a little indicative that it's in the heads of both of them that way too.
Yeah, I mean, guys, this brings me no joy. I agree with your sentiment. I agree on both of them, but I don't know how else to say. It's like Patrick Mahomes has to hit these. I don't, and he said it right after the game, and he understands this, but you go back and watch it, he has half the field to throw it to Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy is wide open. I mean, he could underthrow him, he could overthrow him, he could throw it further. I mean, Mahomes does really usually a good job of leading guys away from defenders to make sure they don't get hit that hard. There were no defenders there. I mean, like, there was no reason to throw this ball out of bounds. And if he saw it earlier, he had more room, as you talked about, Vahe. Even if he didn't see it earlier, he could have underthrown it. Or it's just, this is a big problem. The Chiefs and Mahomes can't throw it deep. I don't. It's so weird because you guys were around in 18 and 19 when he was flinging all over the place to Tyreek, and obviously they had a connection that went on and on and on. And he was one of the best deep throw guys, and that's really what opened up the minds, I think, of a lot of Chiefs fans of what offense could be. Is that this is a gunslinger who can toss it anywhere, but for whatever reason, it's just he's got to hit him. That should have been a completion. Part of this is on Xavier Worthy, obviously, like you said, Vi. I think the footwork was so in his head that he tapped his feet too early. He can't happen as an NFL receiver. He's got to be better. He's 21 years old. He should learn from it. But I mean, the $50+ million quarterback, got to hit him. You got him. You have those opportunities, and you only get so many of them. And you're right, that changes the course of the game. And so, I think the main thing is the Chiefs have got to get this figured out. Whether it's, we talked about the Chiefs coaches, offense coaches in the meetings now are talking about having less motions and shifts to try to simplify things to get guys to play faster. Whether it's getting those guys together in the film room and figuring things out, whatever the case may be, they are so reliant on these 12, 13, 14, 15 play drives, and they just have no easy button. And that was a chance at an easy button, and they just keep missing it. So, I do think there's a lot of Mahomes. And that's not something we say often, and it's something that we almost never say. But I do think that this one is probably more on him than it is on Xavier Worthy. And right now, that's something that's just got to get fixed.
Just one little thing to add to that. I mean, I think kind of to your initial point, if I had to choose one player in the NFL to build my team around, it's Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yeah.
Then and now. But you made the point about missing passes deep or deep-ish, right? There have been several sort of surprisingly inaccurate shorter passes that I can't quite account for. I mean, the one that comes to mind immediately, of course, is Kelsey the week before against the Broncos in the end zone. And each is its own story, right? I mean, Patrick's the computer in tennis shoes, and he's, going through all these things. But there have been enough of those that I've been a little puzzled by a just more lack of accuracy more frequently than I'm used to envisioning from Patrick, who can still, put a ball, laser a ball in between, our six arms to somebody. I'm not diminishing that, but I don't know if you guys agree with me. But I feel like just pure misses that are on. It's not a ton, but it's enough that it's game changing in some ways.
A couple points on that, Vahe, too. Like, he's been more impacted by pressure this year than he has been in years past. He's been so good at sack avoidance. We talk about it every year. He's taken more sacks this year. Some of that's been early pressure. We saw, obviously, Kingsley, some of the struggles he had, but He has not avoided negative plays like he did in the past, and that was early against the Bills too. He got taken down. I mean, the Bills always spy him, and like he seemed surprised by a spy. There's some things that just aren't computing right now. And I remember talking with the Vegas odds maker, Jay Cornegay out at Westgate a couple weeks ago. It's when Mahomes was still second in MVP odds, second or third. And, his stats where he still had more interceptions than touchdowns. And he said, hey, it's going to take a lot to get to Patrick Mahomes being plus 1,000, where you bet 100 and win 1,000. Like, we're not that dumb. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to bounce back, all these sorts of things. Well, I saw some out today. He's plus 1,300 to win the MVP. And if we're talking just about narrative here, guys, like, the narrative is there for him to win this thing because, like, all the pieces around him are out. They're still winning football games. And the pieces around him aren't great, and he's battling through an ankle injury. So, like, I think we have to sort of embrace the fact right now that, like, this isn't. He played fine against the Bills, and again, that fourth quarter touchdown, whatever magic they had in that one, they need to try to replicate, which I think is kind of what Andy Reid was saying on Monday. But we also sort of have to face the fact of what you're saying. Like, this should be kind of the peak of his powers. 28, 29 years old, a few years in the league, understands defenses. Now he's shorthanded all these weapons, but like this season is not gone how we all expected it to go for him. And part of that right now is just on him, like things just aren't, whether it's the ankle, whether it's the pieces, whether it's trying to get chemistry with these guys that weren't in training camp. It's not working right now. And I think that's kind of why we heard Andy Reid talk about going back to the drawing board a little bit this week with the offense, because as you mentioned, Vahe, I don't think any of us would say you would start any NFL team. If you pick one player, you're taking Patrick Mahomes. Why that is not producing a little bit better than what it has been producing, or why it's creating these misconnections, that's a mystery the Chiefs need to solve.
Okay, in the few minutes we have left, let's get to a couple of other smaller topics. And listen, I'm going to bring up a non-starter, but I thought it was noteworthy when we saw where Kingsley Suamataia was inactive for the game, and backup left tackle to Wanya Morris, and Ethan Driscoll was activated for the first time this year. How about a quick thought on that, Jesse? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, Andy Reid was asked about it on Monday and basically just said that that's where they're at with Kingsley right now and in his development. So, to use a college term, this is sort of like a redshirt year potentially for him. He said sometimes you have to take a step back to take a couple steps forward. And I think what we saw from Kingsley when he had to go in there for Wanye the previous week was just, it was mental. You know what I mean? Like he
right.
couldn't get out of his own head. So I think when you get to that point, you have to go with a different option as a backup tackle. And, we haven't heard much from Ethan Driscoll, an undrafted free agent, I believe, out of Marshall, a huge guy, like 6'7", 6'8", but they probably feel better with him right now than they do Kingsley just based off the mental aspect of it.
Right. Guys, am I just not remembering this right? I feel like it seems vaguely familiar in my adult mind that Andy, not so long ago in the last 3-4 years, did a similar thing with a rookie and had him back active, the next week, just sort of shock therapy. But maybe this is deeper and just different than that. I could be misremembering, but it just seemed like it's been something Andy has had in his bag of tricks. Now, whatever he did before, and it sounds like I'm wrong, there is something different with Kingsley in the idea that it doesn't seem to be just about shock therapy. It seems to be a testimony to this is how it is.
Well, the tape doesn't lie. You know what I mean? And that's the bottom line is maybe for this week, at least, to get him back in a right frame of mind, you can't have your left tackle just whiffing on guys when he has a guy that's helping him chip on the outside. So they watched that film just like we watched that film. And to see that sort of result, they probably just felt better about Ethan Driscoll. And they're just being completely honest with you. Doesn't mean it's not going to change Vahe, but they've got some development to do with Kingsley, no doubt.
Okay, I'm going to just run down a few items here. And while I'm doing that, you guys think about what it's going to mean to have Isiah Pacheco and Charles Omenihu back. But let me start with this. A salute to Noah Gray, 2 touchdown receptions for the first time in his career. Good to see that. I can see him getting more and more of the production at tight end as the final weeks of the season. Shamari Connor picked up an interception, but then was pretty self-critical after the game. Didn't like the way he played. Had a big late pass interference penalty that hurt the Chiefs. Would have gotten the Bills off the field. Najee Johnson. How about Andy Reid? coming to the post-game press conference and looking at the stat sheet and praising Najee Johnson for being the team's leading tackler, I think it was not a good game at all for Najee Johnson. And I think the Chiefs really have an issue at cornerback number 2. Mike Caliendo, how about that? 6-yard reception, first reception of his career. Good for Mike. And Tyquan Thornton, interesting signing for the Chiefs. Picked him up off the New England Patriots, who had cut him last week. He's on the practice squad. Wide receiver, gives the Chiefs a little bit of speed. We'll see if the Chiefs only have 5 wide receivers on the active roster right now. We'll see where Thornton might eventually, what he might eventually become for the Chiefs. Okay, Isiah Pacheco, Charles Omenihu could be back as early as this weekend. Jesse, what does this mean?
Yeah, I think it's a big deal for the run game. I talked about the Chiefs having the 12, 14, 15 play drives, and Kareem Hunt has very, very clear strengths. He will get you a couple extra yards after contact, and he will hit the hole in the right way. And a lot of times the Chiefs offensive line is blocking for 5 yards, and they're getting 7. They're blocking for 4 yards, and they're getting 6. What they're never getting is 18 yards because Kareem Hunt has the longest run for running back this year for the Chiefs. That was last game against the Bills. It was 17 yards. He never beats a safety. He never has the speed to break away. Isiah Pacheco can give them a different dimension. So I think that's a big deal. Also, the Chiefs were using a lot more in the pass game this year. And right now they could use a yards after catch type of receiver. I kind of posed this question to you guys over the weekend, which is, who is the Chiefs' best guy right now at yards after catch? I mean, we know Rashee Rice was just eating with what they do early in the season, but like right now, who would you consider their best yak guy?
They have one?
I mean, would you say Juju? I mean, again, the guys we're mentioning here, guys are not the ones you would typically go to the top and say, oh, this guy's going to break a tackle and go gain 12 yards. So my main point is this: Isiah Pacheco is not a guy that breaks a bunch of tackles either, but he has some speed. He can bounce off of guys. I think they can add that speed element back to the game. Right now, this is not a roster, not a team right now that features a lot of speed offensively outside of Xavier Worthy. So I think getting him back would be a big deal.
Just to amplify your point, Jesse, I mean, as we talked about this over the last couple of days in our own chats, you made the point about where's the speed other than Worthy, really, and Hardman, but that's he's used in a different way. The thing I think about Pacheco on a couple levels is pretty encouraging for them. I think, look, there's just a general juice factor to having a guy who plays like that come back, and I think also with Omenihu, you get the feeling of this, roster that's been depleted starting to come back together. But more specifically with Pacheco, one of the things with Kareem Hunt that I think has become more and more apparent is just he'll churn. He does plenty of fine things, but he doesn't really have burst. And I also think at times, I don't think his vision's what we've seen. And I do think Pacheco can be up and down with that a little bit, but we've certainly seen him find the hole and go. And I think that does give him a chance for more, maybe not full explosives over 20 yards, but, some double-digit runs that we're not seeing much of right now. And that just moves the chains in a whole different way. And it really could be revitalizing.
I want to flip what you said to Vahe, because you said find the hole and go. He might just go to find the hole, because sometimes your speed can get you to a hole.
Yeah. That's true.
So that really can help the Chiefs as well. I mean, Pacheco's one of the fastest guys in the NFL from the running back position. He's big and he's fast. That's kind of why they drafted him. So I think I can help. Real quick note, I know you mentioned Omenihu. We didn't really say anything about him. I think your hope with him is that he's as ready to go as he's been on social media, because he seems just itching to play. The only reservation I have is just that we've seen times in the past where injuries like this can take a longer time for guys to get back to full strength. I think back to Turk Wharton is a perfect Chiefs example. He tears his ACL the next year. It's just not quite that same juice. And then you have this year, which he's had a really good season and kind of bounced back to, what he was before. So sometimes these things take a little bit of time. We'll see with Omenihu. But again, if his attitude and his effort is anything close to what it seems to be on social media and his eagerness to get back, the Chiefs could use some of that juice on the defense as well.
He was a sackmeister last year, and the Chiefs had no sacks in Sunday's game against the Bills. They'll try to rectify that this Sunday against the Carolina Panthers in Charlotte, noon kickoff. on CBS. Great conversation as always with Vahe Gregorian and Jesse Newell. Big thanks to our producers, Monty Davis and Randy Mason. And we'll be back next week talking Chiefs on SportsBeat KC. Join us then.